Good morning. Good morning, Sue. Good morning, Anne. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Louise. How are you? So, we're here again. Another month, another lockdown. But we'll still be here. Although the shop door will be closed, we'll still be here. Online orders and online classes. We will paint them on the beaches. We will not surrender. Hope you're doing alright though anyway. I will wait a few more minutes in case anybody else wants to join. Wipe off any of the excess bits. I didn't put burnt sienna down, did I? Morning, Robert. I'm just trying to quickly check what colours I said, and I think I missed off burnt sienna. I'm going to try and do it without burnt sienna, because I'm very daring. So let's see if I can do it. It's certainly an interesting time of history, isn't it? I'm just trying to find some positives out of all of it. We've all got each other, right? So it's ultramarine, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, lemon yellow. And that's it. I will jump onto Discord. In 1 second, and then I'll start. But it's only 2 minutes past 10. It's quite a simple scene, and as we know, often they're the worst. No, they're not the worst. They're the more interesting because you have to rely on technique. You can't fudge it as easily. I forgot to. I don't want too many heavy lines, you see. So I'm just keeping it fairly soft, although sort of it does wend its way round like that, doesn't it? But if I make it too heavy, it won't look right as a painting. If I make it too light, you won't be able to see what I'm doing. What a dilemma. But I think Will's right. A friend of mine took this. He lives around that area. And he goes on a lot of walks. Good morning, Robert. I'm alright, thank you. Are Anne and Chris still away? Or are they back now? Yeah. Are they going to be locked there? Yes. They should be back. Yeah. Before it all kicks off again. No, I'm okay actually, because I know I've got it all set up now online. I've got the classes and the shop online, So in theory, I said to Jackie, this next 4 weeks, I mean, if it is going to be 4 weeks, they're already saying, aren't they, that it might take longer than that, which we all probably think anyway. But it's a good chance to see how well we've got it all set, and you know, to because we hadn't got the shop online for the first month, 2 months of lockdown, so we've just got to push it and push it and push it. Fortunately, I've been buying bits of Christmas stock for the last 2 months in anticipation of this happening. So as long as my suppliers stay open, I shouldn't have an issue. But the shop's fuller than it was when we went into the first lockdown. But there are certain things that we haven't been able to get in stock since the last lockdown because they're just really behind. Certain colours, certain bits and bobs that are just impossible to buy globally. And I think it's the knock-on effect. Like there was, I think Dale Rowney had problems getting all the lids for their tubes of paint because they don't manufacture them; they buy them in. So therefore, they can only make as many as they've got the lids for. So it's this huge knock-on effect that's going on in the art. I've never known it happen in the art world ever in 25 years because, you know, they're always open, even if they're struggling like we all have been during the recessions and stuff. They're always open. And what happened was during the last lockdown, a lot of us were still selling online, so we cleared all the warehouses. So when the factories reopened, they're starting from absolute scratch, which they've never had to do in their lives. And then they're on skeleton staff, so they're not keeping up with the original demand, plus the additional demand from everybody that was taking up art during lockdown that want to carry on. So it's a huge knock-on effect that I've never seen the like of before. But interestingly, I was just saying this to the guys downstairs, this isn't even our worst year. Looking at the account, no. So I kind of feel, as long as we don't sink back into the double dip recession takings, we'll be all right. 2011, 2012 were our worst years, in every financial sense possible. So as long as we can keep going above that, but then we didn't have an online shop, and I was still trying to get over losing the house and my marriage and everything like that, so I wasn't as fully switched on as I am now, or as computer savvy. So it's just it is what it is, isn't it? I say this a lot now, and I think I'm gonna have to get it on a t-shirt. It is what it is, and we just gotta knuckle down and try and make the best of a bad situation. And the positive is that everybody's in the same situation everywhere in the world, so it's not like if only I was so and so, or if only I was there. Everyone's feeling it. So I'm a lot more chirpier than I was, and I'm not going to work from home because of the online shop, and I've got loads of commissions I've got to get done for Christmas for pet portraits. I had 2 just yesterday. Yeah, so it's good. And actually, having lockdown for 4 weeks will mean that in between classes I can knuckle down with those without having to run downstairs and serve and then come back up. Do you know that there's not the same interruption? Not that it's a bad interruption, but it's an interruption nonetheless. And I also do calligraphy certificates. I do the names on all of the certificates for the British Chiropractic Association, and they've just had a surge of people pass, so I've got about 150 certificates that I've got to write out for them, which they will pick up after lockdown ends. So I know I've got a good 4 weeks to crack on and get stuff done. And to be honest, I'm better when my brain is busy and full. Yeah, so I intend to just keep it as busy as possible. So what I want to do is I'm going to wet the sky and the water. Do you know what? In fact, I'm going to wet the whole page, which is a little bit weird, but it's a 45-minute demo, but I'd still do this in a normal lesson. I'd just pick a more difficult subject to last us the time. Oh, I saw Pauline. Pauline popped in on Saturday. I haven't seen her since the start of lockdown. She's looking all right, bless her. And I'm trying to get her on Facebook so she can join us. So that would be lovely. So this is just water. Now you can see where my lamp is reflecting. I'm doing a little bit of ultramarine. Top right. I mean, it's technically not ultramarine, is it? It is more of a mix of the two blues, but I'm sticking to ultramarine because I want to. Right, so bottom right river, top right sky, and I want to create the mist. Now it's sort of a purpley grey, so if I go in with ultramarine and cadmium red, that will give me that purple grey, because it won't give me a full severe purple. I will wet my brush a little bit more. And don't forget, it will dry 30% lighter, so we're creating this sort of mist, this low-lying mist in here. So where, as I've said, these sort of simpler landscapes in watercolour are never as simple as they seem, which those of you that are on the Friday class will lay testimony to, because your skills have to come to the fore a little bit more than they normally would, because you're having to show them off a little bit. I'm going to let that, I really have wet this, so I'm going to let it dry a little bit, but this background on the left has an indication of trees and path and bank, so I want to try and put that in while it's damp, not while it's wet. If I do it while it's wet, I run the risk of all my trees just escaping into the sky, and I don't really want that. I want a little bit of control. Just a little bit. And of course I've been able to get Banbury Art Fest, virtual Banbury Art Fest up and running, which launches on the 14th of November for 2 weeks. We're working with Shop Happy, and we've got about eight artists and makers so far, and I think there'll probably be a few more joining in now lockdown's been announced. So that'll be quite good. So we'll have lots of different arts and crafts, all virtual online for sale, which is wonderful. I won't get that because of the demo. I can bring them back. So if I go, I've got the purple colour. I'm going to make it a little bit darker, and I'm going to add a tiny weeny bit of red. A tiny weeny bit of cadmium yellow, so it makes it more of a sludgy, greeny, grey, brown colour. And I'm going to just drop that into the background. It's so there's ultramarine and cadmium red to make a purple, then a little bit of cadmium yellow to make it more of a browny colour, I suppose it is. And I'm just going to keep that to create a little bit of the Misty riverbank. I might put a very thin line of this right at the back here, so it gives us that feeling that things are moving around, but it's so soft and light that I don't really want to do too much with it. So I'm letting the colours run naturally. I might grab the hairdryer in a second, because it'll start cauliflowering if I'm not careful. So if I hairdry it, it'll just soften it enough. Now if I can catch that just right, I can probably put in a little bit more of the colour there. And then quickly, because you want it to feel as misty as possible. A really soggy bit right on the end, and if I don't catch it, it's going to leach back into the paint and give me a massive cauliflower. I don't really want. That'll do, I think. I think that's nice and soft, so that's good. So basically, if I add a little bit of lemon yellow, and so you want your colours to feel really misty and bleached out, and to do that you need a lot of water. So I'm going to add a bit of lemon yellow and ultramarine into a little bit of that purple background colour, and I should be able to just paint that little area there and a little mid-ground in the mist. So again, it gets tricky because you have to allow for it drying lighter, but equally you don't want it to become too dominant, and it is always a worry, even for those of us that have been doing it for a long time. I'm just going to add a little bit of reflection of squirrels molting there, just a little line like that. We really want to fill the mist. Now you could add a narrow boat or anything in that, but it's probably taking it a bit too far with a 45-minute demonstration. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. And I might make a slightly darker green just with more yellow and more blue right for the river bank on the opposite side, because where the trees sit it's just a little bit darker. And while it's damp, it's the best time to do it. I find working damp is better than working wet. If you work wet, what could happen is that it just spreads exponentially, and then you lose any sort of shape or form. But if you work damp, you've still got that nice softness to it, but you've got a little bit of depth. I might, if I add a little bit more blue and a hint of red, we're going to save the cadmium yellows for the foreground side. So I just want this a little bit darker down here, and then I can allow for it to dry and then work on the trees. Squeeze excess out there, because the tree bark, the light, I mean the reason why it looks mistier than anything is because the light on the trees is coming in from sort of, it looks like the lower left, the lower right. So it's an early morning, the light's coming from down here shining on the trees, and that's why it's making the mist that lovely grey colour. So that's got to dry. We'll work out the trees a little bit, and the ones towards the centre will be much softer. The ones that come towards the right hand side on the background will be slightly darker, and that will give us that feeling of depth. And then we'll jump over to this side. In fact, I could use this colour, this green that I've got, to paint the whole foreground in. A little bit more yellow in there. And then that gives me a base for whatever I want to do on this side. Now I'm just going to flick up a little bit into the water's edge. And obviously I will be going much darker with this, but it's, while we've got the colour, it's sensible just to use it. I'm going to see if I can do it all with just my squirrel. I still haven't changed my squirrel. It's my original squirrel from 2 years ago. It is starting to lose its shape a little bit, and I have got one lined up to replace him, I think, somewhere. But at the moment, I'm trying to stick with the good old one. Good old familiar. So it's still really wet, that background. If I put the trees in too soon, then there's every chance that again it will all spread and we'll lose that. But you can see as it's drying lighter and softer. If, however, it goes a little bit wrong and it's not as pale as you'd have liked it to be, then we can always use a bit of soft pastel. So I'm just letting that dry. And then I'll start mixing up that. You see that the way that the bark is being lit, it's kind of like a yellow brown anyway, so that's a really good way I can show you how to mix your colours. Because when you think of the colour wheel, its complementary opposites give you browns. So this is in case you run out of burnt sienna anytime. It's a really good lesson to learn anyway. But also it gives you different browns than burnt sienna on its own. So if you've got a complementary colour opposite each other, when you mix them together you get browns. So that's red and green, blue and orange, and yellow and purple. So to get a brown, if we stick it, we'll go with yellow and purple for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix purple out of ultramarine and cadmium red. So if I want to make a brown, I need to add yellow to this. The issue is going to be, isn't it, if I've got too much blue in my purple, it's going to go more green. If I have more red in my mix, it's just going to go a little bit more orange. So you're better off having a red brown, a red purple rather than a blue purple for this purpose. And then I'm going to go with some cadmium yellow, which we haven't used yet, and mix that in with the purple. And that should start to give us a little bit more of a nice warm yellowy brown colour. Clever, isn't it? So if you mix this up and your brown mix is more green, it just means that you've got a bit more blue in there. So then add a little bit more red. It's always tricky when you're mixing three colours together. So when I mix three colours, I always mix a colour up first. So I'll either mix a green or a purple or an orange. Then I'll add the third colour slowly into it. But I think my background is still a bit. I'm going to quickly blast that with the hairdryer. And then, do I want a bit more yellow in that? Maybe I do. And then, because it's reflected as well, isn't it? So we're going to really go here with our... I might end up having to use the smaller brush for a bit of dry brush, maybe, I don't know. Obviously everybody in town today is feeling the effects of what they're going to do and how they're going to survive and cope with lockdown. All the businesses are having to make plans. Fortunately, because I don't know if I'm a realist or if I just moan a lot, but I always hope for the best but plan for the worst. So I'd already started planning for this because I could kind of see it coming, if I'm honest. So it wasn't a big shock. It's annoying, but it wasn't a big shock as it will be for some of the shops. But you see, there's still a lot of businesses. I don't know about Banbury, but I've seen it online. There are still so many businesses that haven't adapted since the first lockdown. So they haven't gone online. They're not using social media. They're not doing all the things that will help their business move forward. And it isn't easy to learn new things all the time, and it's annoying, I know. Yeah, I think some of those businesses will end up really struggling over the next month or possibly more. Right, so let's squeeze a bit of that out. I want to just dilute that brown a little bit more for the other tree. Because this has got to be a little bit more misty, hasn't it? And you can kind of start to see bits of branches, but it's nearly all foliage. But we want it a bit mistier, so that's going to be soft. I don't know why I whisper when I want something misty. Maybe something like that will do. I could use this brown for the towpath as well, which is hard to spot, but there's got to be one because we're on a river or canal side, so put that in over the green a little. drag that round, because you want it softer in the back. Everything's always softer in the background anyway, but with something like this you want to sort of accentuate the softness. So just dab it with your finger. I'll clean my brush now, because then we can mix those sort of yellowy greens. Doing all right for time, which is good. I'm going to see if I can get all of my Christmas presents this year through independent Banbury businesses during lockdown. So I want to try and support them, even if I have to buy through Facebook or their website or Shop Happy. I don't mind, but I want to try and support the town centre businesses as best as I can for Christmas. So I'm gonna keep it very local. I usually do a little bit local, but this year I want to go full on Banbury only. See if that works. Right, so I'm going to make a dull green from a lot of cadmium yellow. I'm mixing it in with the other green because there's hardly anything there, and a little bit of ultramarine. I'm starting mainly with the middle tree. And then I'm hoping that as the colour runs out, it'll let me work with the tree on the sort of left-hand side. The one that's a bit mistier, but I might have to sort of change it a little bit more. And make it a little bit more watery, but if I can do all of the trees, just keep them loose and dabby, and it'll be the same with the reflection. Which may see, my brush is quite wet, which is not always that helpful, because I could have done with it being slightly drier, but because I'm adamant to just use the one brush, I'll have to live with it. Now, let me squeeze out a little bit. You see, these brushes are wonderful and they hold so much, but when you're trying to do mist, that'll do. I think I need to go a little bit darker. A little bit darker there. Ah, there you are. Keep it soft and light, and I might go a little bit darker still on some of this, sort of with a bit more blue in here, but it's still going to be watery, and I have to remember that the light is coming from the right hand side, so if I darken any of this foliage, it will be the left hand side that I darken. And the problem that you'll find is that you've also got to try and darken the same side of the reflection. So that's where it comes a little bit more. But we'll cheat it. I know the reflection's really, really smooth and soft in this. But I think I'm going to try and move the water around a little bit and make it move a little bit. So for the Misty tree, I'm going to be tapping with my finger. And the reflection doesn't have to exactly match the land above. We've talked about that before. As long as you've got reflection that is a similar shape, we can get away with it and fudge it a little bit more. Now, if I add a little bit of that brown, I can sort of like think about a slightly darker riverbank, because the trees are sort of like standing out a bit too proud. And there will be other twiggy branchy bits maybe. And I mean, you can, once you've got your foliage on, you see, you can add more finer branches on your trees, because sometimes you need to know where the foliage is going in order to know where to stick your branches. It makes it a bit more natural. But it's that misty feel that we really want to try and capture. See, that path is still really, really wet. I might go slightly less dilute with this ultramarine cad yellow mix for the tree right at the foreground here on the right hand side, you know, the closest to us on the river. If I splay the bristles a little bit, it'll just help give me a quicker bit of texture. Something like that anyway. I mean, this foreground is so dark that I do want to try and retain some of that dark, but also I still want it to feel in the realms of, if we were standing in this, it wouldn't be as dark, because obviously a camera photography will changes the perception slightly. It makes dark things darker and light things lighter, and you lose the mid. So I'm trying to put the mid in first, and then obviously the darker we can make the foreground, the mistier that background will look, and it will look like we've intended to do that, not that we just ran out of paint or whatever. So this is ultramarine and cad yellow, and I'm just going to darken the foreground grass, and I'm flicking up. But if it leaves some of that lighter area that we put in, it's kind of it's almost like a bit of, you know, dew covered grass. Oh, I think Jackie's just arrived. Hello.
Hello.
All right.
Still alive.
Well, that's always a bonus, isn't it? I think, especially while you're making your way into work. So I've worked on the foreground bit because the paint will naturally start to soften and lighten on the brush, because I just want to really make it feel like we've got that bit of distance and depth. Now I probably will make some darker greens and then some purples, but it really does just help break this up a little. Had a lot of orders come in over the weekend.
Yes. Okay. Okay. We've got that.
What's that? Got one. I think we've got one. I've got one now.
Oh, have you? Okay.
To be fair, I don't need my own book. It'd be funny if I had to refer to it.
Regarding that,
Yes.
do you want to do that this afternoon?
Yes. Yes.
On the way back.
Yes, we'll do that. Because of it being glass. But we've got one just up here. Just use the one that's up here. Right, so I'm going to go with a bit of yellow but a lot more blue while this is damp. Because it's misty and murky, we can kind of get away with it. So this is very blue. This is just cad yellow and ultramarine. But it's been really sad to see the amount of people that have been panic buying. I mean, yes, this might go on for months. We don't know.
Panic buying of art supplies.
Yes, if you want to panic buy art supplies, you know,
please do so.
Please do so. But not bread and milk and flour, because there's definitely enough of that to go around. However, there may not be enough art supplies to go around, and that's the truth. I am going to switch to a number 4 round to do a little bit of dry brushing with this slightly darker green on the very tree on the right hand side. Because what you'll find is that different need to mix up a bit more. Different brushes will give you different foliage shapes. Now I know that sounds a bit mad, but obviously if you just use the same brush for everything, which I was going to do, but if you do that, what will happen is that all of your tree shapes will look very, very similar. So I'm just sort of creating a little bit of a something on this side to get a little bit of texture, and maybe I can do a little bit of that something right on this one. I saw one photograph of a person in an Aldi or Lidl, and they'd got a shopping trolley full and a boot full of self-raising and plain flour. I mean, how anybody's going to use up 80 to 100 bags of flour in 4 weeks is quite amazing. It's the same as there were a lot of people in the first lockdown that bought boxes and boxes of eggs, but you can't do anything with eggs, can you? Because you can't freeze them unless you're going to be making a lot of cakes to then freeze. Crazy selfish people. Right. That might do for now. I might sort of lift and create some slightly longer grass. And then we can do more darks in this bit with purples, but yeah, I think it is mainly purples for the rest of it. But what I can do to make that water feel like it's moving is if I stick with my round brush, I can sort of lift out and drag. Now if it doesn't lift out very well straight away, that's alright, because you can always dab it with some kitchen roll and it will lift straight off. But what this does is it just agitates and lifts off little stripes and lines of colour, just to help the water. We do this quite a lot in our watercolour classes, is just to give that movement. But what you find is you need to make your lines horizontal. And yeah, you could use gel pen afterwards, so I wouldn't worry too much. And where you drag the colour to or from, it just creates some extra lines in the water just to help it move. I'm going to try and not go over the foreground grass, obviously. And then I'm going to mix the purple, and I could, I'll just mix it in with the with that green, because it doesn't really matter. So that's dirty cadmium red and ultramarine. I saw a wonderful photograph that somebody had posted. I don't know where in the world they were. I don't know whether it was sort of the south of France. But the shadows on it were purple. It was phenomenal. So let me just do yeah, cadmium red and ultramarine, sort of an equal amount. There's a rock in there as well that I'll put in, and then chop down. That's another rock there. do, I don't know if I need anything too dark, maybe right at the base of the river and maybe big tree. Just a few dark bits there just to make it feel like there's a bit of shadow and light, perhaps. And then semi-dry brush grass in the foreground, and there are sort of like twigs and branches coming out of this. Don't know if I've mixed up enough here, so I'm doing a little bit of dry brush, but then I will mix a little bit more. Make sure there's some blue in there. We're nearly done, but you can see how the darker foreground is really helping bring out the softness of the background. What you can do, if you're quick, and I don't necessarily mean now unless you're doing it now, when you're doing this sort of dry brushy stuff, you can grab hold of a biro lid while it's damp. You can actually add grass coming through the dark, so it gives a really, really lovely texture. And it means that you've got lighter blades coming through the dark. So I'm using the scoopy bit of the biro lid clip. It's stuff we've kind of done it before in a few places, but not on the same sort of scale as this. However, what I would recommend is, if you do like the look of this, and it is lovely to do, you just do a short section and bring it through. And I don't want to go too far into that section. And it kind of outlines the blades. Now you don't want it too runny, because if it's too runny, it won't work. You'll end up just bruising the paper and getting darker lines. But using the little scoopy clip bit means that you can do a few extra things in the foreground that makes it really look textured, like you've tried really hard. But we both know that it's just really easy scratching. Bit of sgraffito, this is called. Sgraffito. can see how it's made a difference. A few little stony bits and then I think I'll be done. Maybe a bit of a branchy twig thing, just slightly over the path. Maybe this is a bit of dry brush on some of this just to make it a little bit softer. I do find that happens if you've got just branches sticking out. It looks quite hard and cold, but as soon as you just soften it with a bit of dry brush, it makes a huge difference to the scene. I think that's it, but you can see how much it's totally changed. You could always use some of the purple just to give a little bit of movement in the river. But again, keep it soft and light, but you can see how important the darks are in the foreground. It's the darks in the foreground that will soften and push back all of the background. But don't forget, as I say, if you were really struggling with the colours here and you want them softer, you can always add a bit of white chalk, and that will make a huge difference to the picture. So next, I'll tell you what's coming up this week. So tomorrow afternoon, rays of sunlight behind trees in acrylics. Tonight is the a big stormy sea against rocks, which I did. I have posted that on my own art page. Then we've got Wednesday's drawing class is a Highland Cow. Thursday morning's watercolour class is a wintry scene in pastels with Aurora Borealis. I don't know who she is, but she'll come soon. Thursday afternoon is poppies with a memorial theme in watercolour. Nothing on Thursday evening. Friday morning is the start of a 3-week course on myths and legends depicted in art. Friday afternoon's class is a kayaking on Glacier National Park in watercolour. Saturday morning is it's the 7th of November on Saturday, that's quite scary. And that will be a demonstration using oils with acrylic underpainting. Now don't forget, we are open 10 till 4 tomorrow, and we are open 10 till 4 on Wednesday. From Thursday onwards, we will be closed to the public, but we will still be here. Obviously the classes will not change, they will be online and they will stay as planned. And any orders, go on Shop Appy and order that way, or message us on Facebook and pay by PayPal, and we can either post off or we can drop round, because obviously I won't be tied here every minute of the day for the foreseeable future. I'll be finishing earlier or starting later, or I'll have certainly more time on Saturdays free. Yeah, and you can collect from the doorstep, but we'd have to arrange that. But most of you, I'm presuming, won't be out anyway. But you can collect from the doorstep if you are in town and you let us know, and we are here. So lots of things, but it's certainly nowhere near as scary because we've got everything set up. So you should find that there should be no difference at all in terms of getting your art supplies and your art lessons. The only issue will come is if any of our suppliers are closed or we have continued issues getting certain products in, which we've already got anyway. So whether we're open or not, that doesn't make any difference. So thank you so much for your company today. I really look forward to seeing what you create with this, and you can go to town with these trees in the mid-ground and do so much with it. So I look forward to seeing what you've done. So thank you so much for your company today. Whatever you're doing this week, stay safe. Don't get involved in any skirmishes over a bag of flour in Tesco's. No black eyes, please. No fighting. And no putting bricks in your handbag. So have a really good week, and I'm sure I'll see you. I'll probably see most of you on the drawing class on Wednesday, or the watercolour class on Friday. But whatever you're doing, have a really good week. Take care, and I will see you all soon. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye. Bye, Robert.